Hey, Cece, we're live.
Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Cece Grant. I am the campaign director for Sierra Club's Industrial Transformation Department. I'm really excited to be leading this campaign at this particular time in our nation's history. And that's because I was born and raised in Detroit. And I have experienced the economic pain of this country's exportation of millions of manufacturing jobs overseas. Being from Detroit, I also lived near auto factories growing up. So I've also experienced firsthand the negative health impacts of industrial pollution. My personal story is I was 14 years old, and my dad rushed me to the emergency room when I was complaining that I couldn't breathe. Um, Got to the emergency room, and I was stunned to see dozens of other people in the emergency room with me having the exact same symptoms as I was having, the shortness of breath. I'm getting the same inhalers and steroid treatments. Um, when I asked what was going on, that was the first time in my life that I've heard the term pollution-induced asthma. So this role is personal to me. For too long, we have been told we didn't have a choice, that we had to suffer with the dirty air and dirty water in order for families to be able to pay the bills and keep food on the table. Now, thanks to the investments from the Inflation Reduction Act, the Biden-Harris administration is making billions of dollars of investments to clean up our manufacturing sector so that kids like me don't have to experience asthma attacks caused by industrial pollution. We no longer have to choose between good jobs and a healthy economy. Green jobs and hard hats are coming back to America's industrial heartland, excuse me. States like my home in Michigan and Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Kentucky, communities that have been for decades written off and left behind, are benefiting from these investments. So our campaign here at the Sierra Club will build off the local and national efforts that have been years in the making. Under this new campaign effort, we can win good green jobs, we can rebuild healthy communities, and we can stop the fastest source of climate pollution from industrial emissions. The industrial sector is already responsible for 1/4 of US greenhouse gas emissions. It is now expected to soon overtake the energy and the transportation sectors as the biggest threat to the climate crisis if we do not take action now. So we don't believe in the term hard to abate. We have a great lineup of speakers who will all let you know the same thing. We don't have to choose anymore. With these new investments in clean manufacturing, we can boost our country's economy, support healthy communities, and secure good paying union jobs. Our next speaker is a Midwestern girl like me, and I am so excited to introduce my colleague who has been fighting this good fight even longer than I have, Amanda Shepard. Amanda, take it away.
Thank you so much, Cece. And thanks to all of you who decided to join us tonight to talk about industrial transformation and how important this movement is. So I grew up in rural Indiana with two sisters. Most of my family were farmers, but my parents both worked outside the home to support our family. And my dad has always been a blue collar worker. So for most of my childhood, he was a mechanic, but during my teenage years, he lost his job at a local automotive dealership and thankfully was able to find a job in the steel factory not far from where we lived. I remember him coming home every day, overheated and tired, and my mom constantly worried about him working in the hot factory, especially during the summer. But we were actually incredibly lucky due to one major factor. The factory where my dad worked was where Nucor pioneered their electric arc furnace technology. So while most steelworkers have to worry about numerous toxic pollutants in the air that they breathe, that was one aspect that we could rest easy about. But this is not the reality for most of those in the steel industry, or even for most blue collar workers in the state where I live. or any state across the US. Environmental justice issues plague many people in Indiana, from the coal plants in southern Indiana on the Ohio River to the massive amount of industry, including steel, in northeastern Indiana on Lake Michigan. In fact, Indiana consistently ranks among the worst states for pollution, often being number 49 or number 50 in rankings. What we call the region here in Indiana, meaning the most northeast part of the state around East Chicago and Gary, is among the most polluted places in the country and is overwhelmingly composed of those who are most disadvantaged. Many of the facilities polluting the region are in the steel industry, like US Steel and Cleveland Cliffs, and shifting these industries to be more sustainable, clean, and responsible is absolutely necessary to protect the public health. But it is also important that we make that shift in a just and transformative way so as not to even further disadvantage those who rely on those jobs for their livelihood. My brother-in-law has also been working in the steel industry for all of his adult life, and my sister's family depends on his income for almost everything. This is why a swift and just transition is so important to so many.
Thank you, Amanda, for your story. I think your story and your family's experiences highlight why the just transition must not only be a decarbonization story, but also a public health, a public safety, and a working people story. So thank you again. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Yang Kwan. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Senior Campaign Advisor with the Industrial Transformation Campaign. As Cece and Amanda noted, the industrial sector is responsible for not only a quarter of US greenhouse gas emissions, but also toxic releases that hurt public health. While these industrial facilities produce goods needed for our economy, we must still acknowledge the unfair burden these facilities have placed and continue to place on communities around them. For instance, toxic pollutants from the country's steel, cement, aluminum, and metallurgical coke facilities include sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and soot. These have far-reaching harmful effects on land, water, wildlife, and people. Eliminating soot alone from these sectors would avoid up to 3,000 premature deaths in the United States annually, as well as meaningfully reduce instances of cancer, heart attacks, asthma, and other health impacts that limit people's ability to live their lives fully. But the steel, cement, aluminum industries are also employers. A survey we released last fall that only looked at facilities making new steel and new aluminum and new cement indicated there are roughly 100,000 workers in these plants. This does not begin to take stock of the hundreds of thousands of additional workers, additional jobs that are supported and are supported by these industries, such as mines and additional jobs in producers of steel goods like cars. What's more, as we look to make the transition to clean energy, we will need more American-made steel and aluminum for our electric vehicles, power grid, wind farms, and as we climate-proof our infrastructure, we'll continue to depend on a gargantuan amount of cement. This means we need to grow these sectors and grow them responsibly. And a just transition is characterized by not only environmental improvements, but also by stable, safe jobs with family-sustaining wages. That is why we support public investments to help companies make the upgrades needed at their facilities to produce industrial materials more cleanly without sacrificing their workforce. And to make sure these innovative facilities succeed, we support government initiatives to purchase materials from these facilities for public works and services, from bridges to school buses. And we advocate for the adoption of trade policies that protect our investments in a clean future and support innovation. I will now turn the mic back to Cece to introduce a special guest to our town hall. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yang. That was really great. And he actually, without even knowing it, led perfectly up into our next speaker. Speaking of just transitions, there are few people more respected for their fight for environmental justice than our next speaker. I first met Corinne a few years ago when she was the head of federal affairs for We Act for Environmental Justice. For the last 3 years, she has been leading efforts at the U.S. Department of Education, U.S. Department of Energy, Office of Community Engagement. Please help me welcome our next guest, Corinne Taylor. Corinne?
Hey, good evening, Sierra Club. Important issue, and as we look at the industrial sector and how we're transforming it through the Biden administration's really important investments in our infrastructure. So as said, my name is Corrine Taylor. I've been at DOE now for 3 years. First in the Office of Energy Justice and Equity, where I worked to help implement the Justice 40 initiative across the DOE, as well as helping to support diverse entrepreneurs. And now I'm really excited to be helping stand up the Office of Community Engagement in partnership with Rose Dottie, who is our director. I serve as the associate director. And we are essentially the front door for the Department of Energy, particularly for communities who have not had longstanding relationships with the Department of Energy, or who don't even know where to start. Secretary Jennifer Granholm requested that this office be created, and we've been working over the last year to bring resources to communities all over the country. And so I'm happy to share some really important ways that we've been doing our work, and also some resources with you all that you can then activate and even look at in terms of applying for funding. So Rose Dottie, as I mentioned, is our director, and she sums it up really well. Our mission in the Office of Community Engagement at the Department of Energy is simple yet profound. We look to engage and empower communities across the country in the pursuit of clean energy solutions. We're not just addressing environmental or energy concerns, we're fostering a movement that will bring transformative change to the lives of everyday Americans. And so, we know that we're at a really pivotal time. We're experiencing historical investments. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Act is a once in a generation investment in our nation's infrastructure and competitiveness. Next slide. It's creating helpful incentives to produce semiconductors. The Creating Helpful Incentives to Produce Semiconductors Act, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, the most significant piece of legislation in U.S. history to cut pollution, advance environmental justice, and improve American energy security. Congress has given the Department of Energy a new mandate and unprecedented amounts of funding to achieve these outcomes. Its ranges from deploying big demonstration projects and deployment projects, as well as bringing online new technologies to scale, and also looking to decarbonize existing technologies. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act provide $90 billion in grants and rebates and over $400 billion in loans and loan guarantees. We're focused on decarbonizing and growing American industries, ensuring the resiliency and reliability of our grid, lowering costs, and improving building efficiency. And we're also looking to address the experiences and looking at incorporating more opportunities to engage communities who've historically been impacted by our energy sector. And so how are we doing that? Next slide. We have been focusing quite a bit on bringing to life President Biden's executive order that focuses on Justice 40. And the Justice 40 executive order says that 40% of at least 40% of the benefits of climate-related federal funding should go to disadvantaged communities as defined by the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, which we call CJEST. And there's 8 priorities here. We're looking at decreasing energy burdens in disadvantaged communities, decreasing environmental exposures and burdens for those communities, but also increasing parity in clean energy technology, increasing access to low-cost capital in those communities, increasing clean energy enterprise creation and contracting opportunities, also increasing clean energy jobs, increasing energy resiliency, and also increasing energy democracy in those communities as well. Next slide. And again, our focus on disadvantaged communities is a new initiative that we're really stressing at the Department of Energy. And how are we doing that? It's really being operationalized through what we call community benefit plans. And community benefit plans are requirements and all of the funding opportunities that are through bill, and some of the IRA funding opportunities that require applicants to speak to how their initiatives and their projects will benefit the communities where they will likely take place. And what that looks like are 4 priority principles. And if we go to the next slide, I can talk about that a little bit more. The 4 priorities of a clean community benefit plan include Justice 40, and I mentioned that earlier, but that makes the applicant needs to speak to how their project would meet or exceed the objectives of a Justice 40 initiative, where those 40% of those benefits should flow to those disadvantaged communities. The applicants also must speak to how their project will invest in quality jobs, also how their projects will address diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and also the meaningful two-way engagement with tribal communities and labor, incorporating concerns through enforceable agreements that speak to community and labor agreements. And all applicants have to have this part of their application. It's about 20% of their application, which is a really important part of that. We are looking constantly for people to serve also as merit reviewers of these funding opportunities. So if there's any interest in anyone on here to serve as a merit reviewer, that's something that we care a great deal about as well. Next slide. And so back to the Office of Community Engagement, while all of these investments are flowing through the Department of Energy, it's critical that we increase engagement opportunities, not only to address the historical impacts, but just to make sure that all of this funding and all of these opportunities connect with communities and that those communities can be a part of those solutions. And so the Department of Energy is committed to creating different kinds of resources to connect directly to communities. We also focus on capacity building, where we help stakeholder groups find the necessary information and resources to effectively navigate the clean energy landscape. We provide loads of technical assistance, which is free access to experts who can help a community design their plan or address an energy concern in their area. And then we have a number of opportunities that also provide new ways of entry for communities and stakeholders and organizations like yours to even apply for funding. Traditionally, funding at the Department of Energy, an application might be 200 pages. It can be very laborious. The time from when you apply to when you can then move on to even find out if you're accepted could take months, sometimes up to 18 months from the time something is submitted. And so we've created new opportunities called our American Made Challenge Prizes, which are low barrier applications for organizations, nonprofits, universities, entrepreneurs, et cetera, to apply for federal funding without some of the restrictive and very taxing applications that have traditionally been what people have experienced at the federal level. And so our office is essentially your concierge to understanding how the Department of Energy works. Next slide. We have stakeholder engagement specialists that are placed in each region of the country. I'm really happy that our team is not only located strategically, but they are diverse in experience, and I think they reflect our country. I serve as the Mid-Atlantic and Appalachia engagement specialist, so I'm happy to help anyone in that region. And also the engagement specialist here can help you based on your location and areas of interest. Next slide. We have virtual office hours every 2 weeks. Our next one will be next week, August 7th, 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll be hearing about the Weatherization Assistance Program, WAP, as it's called here in the federal government. And this is another opportunity for communities to apply for the Enhancement and Innovation Grant. We'd love to join you, and I'll make sure to share the Zoom link with the Sierra Club to send out to those who've attended for today. Next slide. We also have a Get Engaged hotline where you can call and ask us questions about any kind of issue that you have related to either DOE funding or energy sector related questions. So you can call us at 202-586-0822 or email us at getengaged@hq.doe.gov, where we'll be happy to resolve and connect you to the appropriate DOE office. We're on LinkedIn, and again, we have virtual office hours every 2 weeks where we connect with communities and share DOE programs. So I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to connect. I hope that as many of you can join us next week for our virtual office hours, and then every 2 weeks after that. We're here to serve you, be your front door, be your concierge to the Department of Energy as we do our best to deploy and do our hardest to really make sure that equity and justice is a part of all the work that we're doing through the bill and IRA. So thank you to the Sierra Club for having me, and I look forward to the rest of this conversation.
Hey, Corinne. We have a little bit of Q&A. We're really going to hold them to the end. But if you don't mind, I will ask you one question about community engagement.
Sure.
So when we are talking to our communities on the ground, you know, we've been doing this for years, right? And so we know how to engage federal agencies. When we go to Mississippi, Alabama, and Kentucky, folks don't believe that they could engage a federal agency, and they want to hear, and you want to hear from them. So could you just share a little bit for the folks, you know, your thoughts and your approach to community engagement? Why and how do you do this work?
Well, we have a number. Well, first off, to your first point about people not even believing, I get it. All of the federal agencies are huge. And then the Department of Energy is a massive and in many ways siloed agency. We traditionally focus on research and development. And so having opportunities for communities to connect with us isn't historically how we've operated. As mentioned with the bipartisan infrastructure law and with our big emphasis on supporting and advancing equity and trying to undo and prevent some of the environmental harms that are associated with the energy sector, we've taken a very different approach for how we're connecting with communities. And Justice 40 throughout the agency has created just a really a new opportunity for us to change how we talk. There are over 140 programs that are covered under the Justice 40 initiative, but those key focuses on bringing communities to the table, having them be a part of the solution for how they want to see their energy future look like is something that we critically care about. So for us in the Office of Community Engagement, we're going to conferences, we're going to community meetings, we're doing a whole host of things to connect with people. We're taking advantage of Zoom and Teams and all of these online apparatuses to connect with people on a regular basis. And we're trying our best to resolve and answer those questions and connect them to the billions of dollars that are flowing. One thing I had mentioned at the prizes, I would really encourage people to go to the American Made Challenge. You can just Google that. And there are just a long list of community prizes that I firsthand have seen communities apply for. Their 10-page applications, a video, a slideshow, et cetera. And communities are able to get within about 3 months, depending on the amounts, anywhere between $10,000 up to $200,000. The price amounts, prize amounts vary, but transformational amounts of funding that a community organization can use to do an energy project in their area. So we're trying our best to connect. We're trying our best to break down those silos. And we're here as a resource to anyone who wants to learn more about the Department of Energy and all that we're doing every single day to just change how, you know, the energy sector has impacted our country and how it's serving the communities that these projects are located in.
Thank you so much, Corinne. And I can testify that you guys are doing a great job. And for those who don't remember that website address on how to get in touch with their office hours, we will make sure to include that information in the follow-up email. Thank you so much, Corinne. We really appreciate your time. Okay. And I'm going to turn it over to Harry.
Thank you, Cece, and thank you for your presentation and leadership, Corinne. My name is Harry Mannon. I'm Sierra Club's Senior Federal Lobbyist for Manufacturing and Trade Policy. So what does that mean? That means I'm your lobbyist on the Hill. Steel, aluminum, and cement manufacturing. These are economic issues, climate issues, environmental justice issues, and they're energy security issues. Production of these three materials alone accounts for 20% of the emissions heating the planet. But we need to make them here for wind turbines, for solar panels, and for EVs. This is a problem, and Congressman Khanna has the solution. Before I joined Sierra Club, I worked at the House Oversight Committee, where I saw Congressman Khanna's grit and aspirations shape the agenda. Through his fearless pursuit of the truth investigating big oil, the Congressman resuscitated President Biden's and Vice President Harris's historic climate law. Fossil fuel companies, they couldn't be trusted. Government action was needed. Democrats could not give up. A year earlier, his Endless Frontiers Act reemerged as the bipartisan CHIPS law, onshoring semiconductor production critical to the 21st century economy. Now, from his purchase on the China Select Committee, and by hitting the road across the industrial Midwest, he's pointing the way forward for progressive values, worker values, conservation values, to unite the country, to decarbonize the country, and to restore and recenter left behind communities. The Congressman's Modern Steel Act is the first step, and Sierra Club is all in. It's my honor to welcome Congressman Ro Khanna.
Harry, thank you. Thank you so much for your leadership on oversight, your leadership with Sierra Club. And thank you to Sierra Club for being all in on the bill and being present in Johnstown, Pennsylvania when we introduced it. The core idea of the bill is very simple, that we can build modern steel plants in America, and we can do them in deindustrialized places like Johnstown and Franklin, Pennsylvania, that have been hollowed out, that really have lost jobs for decades. I was there along with people from the Sierra Club, the steel workers, steel companies. And one of the people said it used to be that we had 40, 50 minutes of traffic, but now the traffic is gone. The churches are hollowed out. The community has been hollowed out. People still have deep pride there. They want to live there. They want to have families there, but they've really suffered through massive deindustrialization. And what this bill will do is have government financing with labor unions, with the private sector to build modern steel. And this steel is going to be 1/3 the carbon footprint because it's going to be hydrogen powered, and before hydrogen, direct reduction iron, which has far lower emissions, 1/6 the emissions of what we're getting right now from China or other parts of the world. And it's going to be new plants to both export and make the domestic need for high standard, high quality steel for the plates that we need or wind turbines that we need. And it's also going to help adapt the existing steel plants into modern factories, because if we're going to have modern plants, the existing plants will need to become modern plants. And all of this is going to help create new jobs. It's going to reindustrialize places that are left out, and it's going to lower the carbon footprint. And we can do this not just with steel. We can do this with aluminum. We can do this with iron. We can do this with different parts of drug manufacturing. The opportunity is for the reindustrialization of this country, reindustrialization exactly in the towns and communities that were left out, and to do it while being good for the climate, while reducing carbon emissions. The key to this, I think, is to be vivid, to go to community after community, to propose the legislation in those communities, and really be specific about what we want to do, and to do that in a community, as opposed to just talking about an abstraction with the large numbers of jobs and throwing out large numbers of carbon footprint decline, but really to show how this can transform the community. And what was so moving in Johnstown is we had people in the community who had been 30, 40 years talking about their experience, what it would mean for a new steel plant to come there, what it would mean for these jobs to come there, which are the jobs of the past in some ways, in terms of jobs they can relate to. Their grandparents worked in these steel plants, their parents worked in them, but they're the jobs of the future at the same time. They're clean, they're low carbon, they're using AI in these steel plants, they're modern factories. So it's combining the past and the future to give communities a sense of pride and hope. And we can do this in Ashtabula County. We can do this in Downriver, Michigan. I think this is a bold proposal for President Harris when she's in office, that to build on the work we did with the IRA, to build on the CHIPS and Science Act. And as Harry mentioned, we also need to eliminate the fossil fuel subsidies. I hope I'll be chairing the Environment Subcommittee next Congress, and my focus is going to be how do we eliminate those fossil fuel subsidies. We worked on it last time. If we can just eliminate some of those subsidies, we will incentivize far more investment into solar, into wind, into hydro, into geothermal, and into deindustrialization projects like the steel bill. So I am really grateful to the Sierra Club. I mean, we had all of the groups represented: Alliance for Manufacturing, the Blue-Green Jobs, Steel Workers, Sierra Club, Cleveland Cliffs, a lot of manufacturing groups, the Alliance, the Institute for Iron and Steel. And I think this is the kind of coalition that can excite the country, that can build on President Biden and Harris's vision to reindustrialize America. And I'm really excited to work with all of you to make this happen. So, Harry, that's what I wanted to share about the bill. And I don't know if there's time for questions or dialogue or what you had in mind.
Thank you, Congressman. Our plan is we're going to share an action item for our members in a bit, and we'll also share their questions with you in your office after the call wraps up. But thank you for being here and for your efforts to bring workers and communities together. Sierra Club is with you. We're in communities across the country, in every iron and steel and aluminum community in this country, and together we're going to drive the Modern Steel Act to the president's desk. So there's work to be done legislatively, but so much is being accomplished right now to eliminate emissions, create good jobs, and secure benefits for fence-line communities. Special Assistant to the President, Ben Beachy, leads this work in the White House. Prior to joining the administration, in his role as the director of the Living Economy program here at the Sierra Club, you all helped Ben create the momentum needed for climate investments to unite core constituencies like labor and environmentalists. Ben, thank you for joining us to share more on the Biden-Harris administration's work to ensure clean manufacturing creates good jobs, benefits communities, and combats the climate crisis.
Excellent. I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for having me, Sierra Club, and thanks to the Sierra Club for kicking this off, and for all of you who are tuning in. All the work from Sierra Club volunteers clearly matters a lot, particularly in the industrial sectors I'll speak to. So I just want to start by thanking everyone for the work that you do every day to fight for a livable climate and a more just economy. So again, as Harry named, my name is Ben. I'm in the Climate Policy Office here in the White House. And I'm excited to be talking with you today about the sea change that is currently happening in our industrial sector. In the industrial sector, as in every other sector of the economy, the Biden-Harris administration is advancing a bold strategy to tackle climate change while creating good union jobs, while helping to build in a more equitable economy. We are taking on sources of climate pollution that other people said was just too difficult to tackle. And that's definitely true about the industrial sector. For too long, observers have looked at this source of 1/3 of our climate pollution and called it hard to abate. We're burying that moniker. Hard to abate was yesterday. Today, we are changing the game with historic investments in technologies that transform how we make steel, aluminum, cement, and other bedrock materials of our economy. And we are squarely focused on ensuring that those investments create not just any jobs, but high-paying union jobs. You know, right now we're witnessing a manufacturing boom across this country, driven in part from the historic investments in President Biden's climate law. And this administration is focused on making sure that workers reap the rewards of that clean energy boom. And it is critical that those rewards support and be defined by hard-hit communities. You know, communities that have been hollowed out by decades of deindustrialization, the coal communities that powered our nation for generations, communities of color fighting for clean air and environmental justice. These investments are an opportunity for frontline communities to build power, to call the shots so that these investments support their own plans for economic revitalization. That is part of how we build a more just economy. So climate, jobs, and justice. That trifecta is the engine of this administration's industrial strategy. There are some people, of course, who say that we're trying to do too much here. Some of them say we're guilty of a quote-unquote everything bagel strategy. I'm not sure if you've tried any everything bagels, but they taste good. And they taste good for a reason. And that reason is that they combine ingredients that go well together. Garlic, onions, sesame seeds. Kind of like climate, jobs, and justice. because we will only tackle the climate crisis by mobilizing trillions of dollars in climate investments. And properly guided, that wave of investments can flow into good union jobs. Properly guided, it can flow into communities that have endured decades of divestment. Properly guided, our climate strategy is a job strategy, is an equity strategy. And that's not just a talking point, that's a policy priority. Right now, we're deploying every tool in the policy toolbox to achieve this win-win-win in the industrial sector. That includes trade policies, purchasing policies, and investments. On investments, the Department of Energy, as you heard Congressman Khanna raise, in March, the Department of Energy unleashed the largest investment in U.S. clean manufacturing in history. And that's not hyperbole. DOE is deploying more than $6 billion to support technologies that will dramatically cut climate pollution from industrial materials that form the backbone of our economy. Some of these investments will make some U.S. steelmakers among the first in the world to produce truly clean steel, as you just heard. Some of these investments will virtually eliminate climate pollution from cement making, a process that has been emissions intensive since the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age. And this is not like a step forward. This is a paradigm shift. And we're matching that supply side push with an equally emphatic demand side pull. You know, the US federal government is the largest purchaser on earth. And this administration's Buy Clean initiative takes advantage of that fact to spur increased demand, public demand for clean construction materials. Right now, federal agencies are deploying more than $4 billion to support clean US manufacturing when buying concrete for federal roads or steel for federal buildings. And as we deploy these supply and demand tools, we cannot allow unfair trade to undercut this industrial transformation. You know, for too long, trade policies have ignored climate change. And this climate loophole in our trade policies has incentivized a shift in energy-intensive manufacturing to countries with weaker standards, lower wages, and higher pollution. And this global race to the bottom has undercut our workers, our industrial communities, and our climate goals alike. Just take a look at aluminum. The United States used to be the largest producer of aluminum in the world. And many of our aluminum smelters were powered by clean hydropower. But since the 1990s, smelter after smelter closed their doors under unfair trade and divestment. And with each smelter closure, workers lost good jobs and industrial communities lost good tax revenue. Right now, we only have 4 primary aluminum smelters left in the United States. 4. As aluminum production declined, aluminum production in the United States declined, aluminum production in China rose to take its place. Right now, over half of the world's aluminum is made in China. And that is a climate problem because the average ton of aluminum made in China is 65% more emissions intensive than in the United States. This race to the bottom is not compatible with good jobs. It is not compatible with revitalization of hard-hit communities, and it is not compatible with a livable climate. That is why we're ending it. The era of climate-agnostic trade policies is over. The era of companies just being able to dump their pollution overseas is over. The era of countries being able to use lax standards to undercut our workers and clean manufacturing is over. And in its place, we're working with many of you to help launch a new race to the top. That is why we recently created the White House Climate, Trade, and Industrial Competitiveness Task Force to close the climate loophole in our trade policies. And right now, we are working with members of Congress, with many of you, environmental groups, industrial stakeholders, labor unions, and with our trade partners to design a new coordinated trade framework that actually supports and rewards clean manufacturing. So it is with this strategic combination of smart trade, investment, and purchasing policies that we can win the industrial transformation we need to secure a livable climate and a more just economy. And the prize for doing so is no less than good jobs for tens of thousands of workers, investments by and for frontline communities, and a fighting chance to actually secure a livable climate for ourselves and future generations. I mean, this is ambitious. It is not easy, but working together, we can do hard things. Just look at what we're doing in our industrial sector. Thank you all, and thank you for having me and for all the good work that you do.
Thank you very much, Ben. I think to continue with our program, it's time to introduce Ileana. Take it away, Ileana.
Harry, thank you so much, Ben, Congressman Khanna, Karine, and Amanda, for speaking with us tonight. It was really wonderful to hear from you and to hear this vision of the future that I think we all think is worth fighting for. I also want to give a shout out to Christian and Hillary, who are part of our digital team on the back end. Thank you for making this run so smoothly. We really appreciate you. In just a minute, Christian is going to drop into the chat or the comment section, however you see it, a link to a call to action that we have where you can get your member of Congress to support Congressman Khanna's Modern Steel Act, which is a bill we are super excited about. And for anyone in the audience who has questions, please remember you can put them in the comments and we will try to get to as many of them as we can at the end. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Ileana Paul. I'm the Deputy Campaign Director for Sierra Club's Industrial Transformation Campaign. And like I said, I'm really excited by the vision of the future presented here tonight. And I know that if we focus not on just what we need to stop or fight against, but instead crystallize that vision of what we need to fight for, the future is going to be really bright. As you've heard many times tonight, we don't have to choose. We don't have to choose between clean air and clean water and good paying jobs. We don't have to choose between having a clean economy, a fair economy, and a globally competitive economy, like Ben was just saying. With public investments to adopt non-polluting technologies, getting our government to buy cleanly made materials, and climate-friendly trade measures that protect these domestic efforts, we can have it all. And Sierra Club is asking you to fight for this brighter future. We can undo the extractivist, exploitative status quo by creating a vision for something better and putting in the work to make that vision a reality. One step you can take today, like I just mentioned, is to send a letter to your member of Congress asking them to support or co-sponsor Representative Khanna's Modern Steel Act, which will invest in modernizing America's steel sector while protecting family-sustaining jobs and promoting thriving communities. Again, thank you so much to all of you who have joined tonight to learn about Sierra Club's Industrial Transformation Campaign and the really exciting work that I hope that we get to do together over the coming months and years. We really want you to get involved and help us transform the way that we make the goods that society needs to thrive while supporting good jobs, healthy communities, and a livable climate. We are now opening up the floor for question and answer. So let's get our first question going. I have a question that certainly I have some thoughts on, but if the rest of my team wants to hop on and respond to it as well. There was a question about industrial polluters and violating clean air permits or violating specifically Title V pollution permits, but the issue being, you know, if we are decarbonizing these sectors but not dealing with local pollution, are we really solving anything? Are we just, you know, is what's happening now, or these investments in industrial decarbonization just rubber stamping more dirty air in our communities? And our answer is no. But Yang, Cece, Harry, if anyone wants to also respond to that, please hop in.
Well, I can start, and I think, Ileana, you have much more to say on this topic as well. But I'll just add that we are totally in agreement that the current regulatory standards that are in place are definitely insufficient. And what we think is perhaps the way forward is, especially for these new industries that are going in, that's going to be with us for the transition in the decades ahead. A lot of these projects are accompanied by these community benefit agreements and community benefit plans that Corinne mentioned. And I think these are ways that we can improve upon the existing regulatory standards and go beyond. So when we're talking about, clean air, clean water, this is areas where the community can take further actions beyond what the laws have currently in place. And these community benefit agreements don't necessarily have to be just limited to new emission standards. It could be also asking these companies to give the communities resources to empower the communities to take further action. So giving them power to measure the pollution, to also have a group of people who are dedicated to engaging with the communities. There are a myriad of options that are available, and we're, in the months ahead, we look forward to sharing with our organizers and our volunteers all the various options and case studies that we have to improve upon the regulatory standards that we also agree are somewhat insufficient to protect the communities currently. But to my team as well, I think there's much more to say on this.
Yeah, I would just jump in and say that fortunately, a lot of the technologies we're looking at to decarbonize the industrial sector also address local air pollution. And so it's important to understand that these investments are going towards a cleaner air, cleaner water, like we've been saying. And we also, Corinne spoke to the community engagement piece for all of these DOE programs. And we think that the ability of communities to really engage with these projects, engage with these companies, lift up their needs will be a really huge part of the industrial transformation that we are looking for. I will move on to our next question if there are no more responses here. The next question, okay, so do you foresee that this campaign will adequately address a just transition within an economic system that incentivizes exploitation? This is a big question. I'm happy to start. Although I bet my teammates again have thoughts. As you all can tell, it's a real team effort here. So I think that we are making changes that really will be transformative. I don't think that we can overstate enough the importance of giving communities power in terms of how federal dollars are spent, right? Public investments should benefit the public, should yield public goods. And that is exactly what the Biden-Harris administration is doing right now, being largely led by DOE. They're doing a really huge effort on the community benefits piece. So I would say that we are working to change the whole system. Sierra Club can't change it all. We can't do it all on our own. That's why we need all of you. But certainly we are trying to really change the way, change the balance of power when it comes to industrial pollution and industrial transformation. Anyone have anything to add?
I could just add one thing there, which is, Annabelle, that's a great question and a hurdle that we deal with every day. I think one interesting development as the lobbyist on behalf of the campaign is just seeing on the Hill the growing awareness amongst the right and the left, folks representing manufacturing communities, folks from big cities, the awareness that actually internalizing these metrics that have to do with justice, be it community air pollution, be it free, prior, informed consent. These sorts of factors are imperative to, if we're going to actually be onshoring production and to make sure that American production is competitive globally, that we should be proud of enforcing environmental and equity measures, be ensuring that we are enforcing them and challenging countries around the world to do the same if they want to compete to enter into our market. So this really, as Ben Beachy was saying, is an opportunity for a race to the top. And America, because of work like the like the Industrial Transformation Campaign and volunteers on the ground, is really primed to make headway in this sphere.
Thank you, Harry. We have another question. I'm so excited that you folks are interested in the community benefits piece. We have another question about community benefits agreements. How easy is it for local communities to hold manufacturers' feet to the fire on the front end before the manufacturing plants come online in their communities? This is a great question, and it lets me talk about some of the work that we have up our sleeves. We are there's a DOE program, the Industrial Demonstrations Program. There are 33 projects across 20 plus states, steel, cement, aluminum, glass, a bunch of industrial sectors. And like Corinne said, and like we've mentioned, there's this community benefits component. And DOE is negotiating the awards right now. But from the get-go, once the negotiations are done, there will be community engagement opportunities. So even though plans may be in place, the communities will really have a chance to build some power and exercise that power in negotiations with these companies. And that's also where Sierra Club is hoping we can play a key role. We're not a huge team. This is the core team right here that you see on screen. But we are going to try to pilot in a handful of communities what it looks like to make sure that folks know how to self-identify as stakeholders. Is there a project in your community? Are there local groups already engaged? If not, can you organize one? If there are, how do you get in touch with them? What can you ask for in a community benefits plan or community benefits commitment or community benefits agreement? Can you negotiate, or we want you to know that you can try to negotiate towards a community benefits agreement, which is a legally binding document. It's not required by DOE, but we think it's something that should be on the table, and it really adds that accountability piece that I think folks are really looking for. So, in some ways, the projects have been selected. Communities may not have gotten to weigh in so far, but the opportunities are just about to open up, and we do think that there is a lot of space for communities to have a say in what happens near them.
And this is one more reason to, oh, sorry, Cece, please.
Yeah, I will say, I've been working on and around community benefits for about 10 years. And the two things that I've noticed, which kind of goes to your point, the manufacturers, number one, want to offer the community the bare minimum. As we see that happen time and time again. And the second issue with the way manufacturers want to define community benefits is they want to pick and choose who their community is. So they may have a handful of people that they like. They'll make a deal with these handful of people, and then they'll go and they'll tell the government oversight, hey, we've made this deal with the community. But what Ileana was talking about, what we're doing here at the Sierra Club is making sure that communities are educated, making sure that community members are brought to the table, and making sure that especially environmental justice community members are not overlooked in these projects. So like Ileana said, we're a small team, but if anyone in a Sierra Club network knows that they have a DOE funded project in their community and they would like some information on how to get started, we will have resources up on our website. We will have resources in our follow-up email that we can send to you, just so that you know the very basics on how to get involved and how to make sure your voice is heard. Because one of the things that we are being really intentional in doing is, building tables, building community tables, and building power, building voices, power.
Oh, it looks like we lost Cece. But yeah, I mean, Cece is spot on. We are building momentum. We'll have plenty of opportunities we'll be in touch with you about to continue to build this momentum. And one, example of us punching above our weight is that Rep. Khanna's Modern Steel Act. actually requires that companies enter into legally binding community benefit agreements in order to draw down these federal funds. So that is an incredibly significant lever to ensure that we're able to hold manufacturers' feet to the fire. And we're building power. The largest manufacturer of new steel has actually endorsed that bill. That includes the language that Sierra Club helped craft with Representative Khanna's team on legally binding community benefits agreements. This is just an incredibly exciting time to join this campaign effort, to get involved in your community, to build the case for new, clean, just investments, and to make sure that on the Hill, your representatives are hearing your voice and know that these are policies you want them to take action on.
Thank you, Harry. We have another question. Oh, Cece, you're back. Did you want to finish your statement? You were on such a roll. That was great. We have another question, and I don't know if Karine is still on and might have thoughts on responding to this, but question, how can communities gain access to environmental impact studies or impact statements for proposed projects? Karine, if you have an answer to that, my guess is that there isn't going to be a lot of information until the negotiations are done, but would love to hear sort of what DOE's perspective is on sharing details of projects.
So just to give everyone a full view of the process, from the time that a funding announcement is announced to something is selected and then awarded, it could be up to 18 months. And so since I've been here in nearly 3 years, for instance, one funding announcement that we selected those awardees, they still have to go through a negotiation process that took maybe 6 months additional after that time that they were selected. And through the negotiation process, some companies that were identified as selectees or awardees did not make it through the negotiation process. So that's one part. In addition to that long process, not all of the negotiations, a lot of that is still like proprietary, because that's a lot of company information, like how they're going to do their projects, et cetera. But we are in the process of making and trying to get more, with the company's agreement, more of these community benefit plans that they go through negotiations at the final point, making them more public so that those communities can be involved. So in terms of like the environmental assessments and all of that, a lot of time, those things are still proprietary and not necessarily shared. And it's really, it's at the judgment of, or the decision of those companies, like how much they share with the public after they've gone through negotiations. So that's the tricky part. And a community benefit plan, even though it's in their, in the final negotiations, there's a lot of it isn't legally binding. And that's why we're encouraging as many companies to do community benefit agreements and project labor agreements, because those agreements are the more binding parts that exist between the awardees and then the labor or the union organizations that they're working with, or the communities that they will be working with too. So that's the tricky part of the process.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Karine. So we are just about at time. And unlike some of the Zooms that's been going on for the past week, this is not going to be a 3-hour Zoom. We're going to close 1 hour in. This is not the first community event we're going to do. So on the website, you'll see a link to sign up to join our campaign. We're not going to spam you, but we are going to be doing additional trainings to equip people how to engage with manufacturers effectively. We are going to go on a road show, and we're actually going to have community town halls in a few states across the country. So if you are really interested in joining our campaign or just getting information and making sure you keep informed, please click that link, sign up. You can volunteer. You can volunteer as much or as little as you want. I know we're all busy, but we are so grateful that almost 700 people came and joined our first virtual town hall. We are small but mighty, and we're just overwhelmed by how much people are interested and want to learn and want to grow with us. So once again, thank you so much. This is a big fight, and we can't do it alone. So please sign up, join us, email us. We will find a way to get you plugged in. Thank you so much. This is about the health of our communities. This is about the health of our kids. And this is about rebuilding a cleaner, greener, stronger economy for everyone. Sierra Club thanks you. Have a good night, everyone.